Thank you so much. Darlene Dorsey with News 4 and Fox 29, and it's good to be back here with two more amazing women. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you both for your service. I'm here with U.S. Marine Lance Corporal Sarah Rudder and with retired Army Staff Sergeant Randi Gavell, two remarkable women that you just saw in the video. Now, I'd like to start with you, Sarah. Now, you both have extraordinary stories about what has shaped your lives and your journey and how you were injured. So, Sarah, if we could just start with you and you could tell us exactly what happened.
The first week of September, I actually went to go visit my fiance's family. And on the way to visit our family, we were in a car accident where I developed a traumatic brain injury. I broke a rib, I broke a nose, and I started healing from that. On September 11th, I was being promoted to Lance Corporal. Immediately after my promotion, the Pentagon was hit. I was stationed directly across from the Pentagon. As soon as the Pentagon was hit, we ran directly to the building where it was on fire. And as soon as we reached the building, we started pulling people from the building and separated them based on severity of injury. And once the injuries were separated and the fire was out, the following day I went back to the building and was in charge of pulling non-survivors from the building. When I was pulling a non-survivor from the building, I stepped back into a hole and concrete came over the top of my ankle where I shattered my leg. I didn't know I had shattered it at the time, and I continued pulling non-survivors for the building for an additional 24 hours. After pulling the non-survivors from the building, I decided to get care for my leg. And as of 2 years ago, they decided to amputate after trying to save my leg for 12 years. And honestly, it was the best decision of my life.
It was also a difficult decision you made on your own. It's still difficult to talk about, or was it just something you knew had to happen?
I have an 8-year-old son, and I actually just had my 15-year anniversary to my husband, who was there since day one of me getting injured. And for me, the turning point was not being able to play ball with my son. If he ran into the street, I wouldn't be able to chase him. He was constantly seeing me every day in tears at the end of the night that I couldn't cope with the pain. And he would constantly come up, "Is this your bad leg, Mom? I'm sorry you're in pain." And I just couldn't do it anymore. I wanted to be strong for him, and I wanted to let him know that I could still be his mom.
And speaking of being strong, I mean, how soon after all of this did you decide you wanted to do sports?
I started bench pressing 3 days after my amputation.
Amazing. 3 days.
3 days.
Oh.
My mom wasn't too happy.
I can't imagine. That just seems just like a crazy idea, I'm sure she thought, but
Yes.
Look how strong you are. Wow. And Randi, if we could hear a bit of your story. You were deployed to Iraq and then to Ramadi in 2006. And can you tell us about your injuries?
I was military police, and my squad and I were stationed outside of a base. We weren't on a forward operating base. We were tasked to rehabilitate a water treatment facility into an Iraqi police station. Along with that, we did the recruiting process that took local nationals and sent them to Baghdad for training to train them up to be Iraqi police. And on August 21st, 2006, we were in Ramadi, and we were doing a recruitment process, and we had hundreds of people coming through the station that day. And we knew that the media had put out, New York Times put out that Ramadi was the death zone of Iraq at that time, and there was a bounty on our heads. And so we knew that it wasn't the safest place to be, but it was our job. We didn't really know anything differently. We just continued every day. And in the midst of the recruiting process at 10:43 in the morning, 3 vehicles pulled up to our station, which wasn't, it was maybe half the size of a football field, so it wasn't a large establishment. And the idea that we found out later was the first one was supposed to detonate the front gate, and the second one, which was a dump truck filled with approximately 1,000 pounds of explosives and fuel propellants, was supposed to drive into the compound and explode the rest of the station. Thankfully, I guess you could say, the middle truck, the big truck, prematurely detonated outside of the station. But the fuel propellant and the size of the blast took out the outside walls and everyone that was in its wake. And so essentially everyone that was at the station that day was injured in one way or another. My squad went from roughly 14 down to 3 mobile people. The rest were severe injuries from fire and shrapnel.
I sense in your voice it's still something difficult to talk about. You relive it, and people might look at you and say, what injuries? But they're invisible injuries, and we want to talk a little bit about the stigma that people might associate with PTS. We don't call it PTSD.
Yes, ma'am. Post-traumatic stress is something that has had such a stigma. A lot of military personnel don't often come out and talk about post-traumatic stress. Recently, post-traumatic stress disorder has become post-traumatic stress because the disorder has heightened the stigma. It has kept people from seeking help because they don't want to be seen as someone suffering with a disorder. They're completely capable. They want to still be seen as completely capable human beings, which they can get to that point, and sometimes it's a struggle. But there has been such a strong, I don't want to say influence, but just the way we're trained, I guess, to no matter what happens to you, you continue with the mission, you continue with your job. So when you have an internal, invisible injury, it's harder to face people and tell them that there's a problem.
Can you ever say to people that you would be fully healed, since it's something we can't see?
I personally don't know if I will ever be fully healed. I don't know if I will ever be the same person I was, and I'm okay with that. The person that I am now is not who I was 5 years ago, thankfully. It's not who I was 10 years ago when I was still in the military. And although I'm not that person, I still struggle with the fact that I am not that person some days. But I love the fact of the opportunities that have come into my life, the people that have come into my life, and the platform that I've been given to share and talk for the people who can't or won't.
And speaking of sharing, you competed in the 2016 Invictus Games in Orlando. If you could briefly tell us what that means to you.
I don't know if I will ever find the words for Invictus itself or adaptive sports. Being able to compete on that platform, being able to compete alongside people like Sarah and people like the other athletes that were on our teams and from the other 14 nations that competed alongside us. It's incredible, it's terrifying, it's overwhelming, and it's humbling.
Okay, and the superhuman over here competed in the Invictus Games, came home the most decorated competitor, 4 gold medals, 3 silver medals. I mean, please explain where you get, whatever steely heart or what drives you. How did you do it?
Honestly, for me, when they decided to take my leg, I was going to get back all those 12 years that were taken from me. I was sick of being in and out of the hospital and trying new therapies and trying new surgeries. And once they took my leg, I said, well, they can't take anything else. This is it. I'm going to do what I can with what I have. So I threw myself in every possible thing that came my way. And to me, it was a challenge. And, I just thought to myself, 12 years is a long time. And I'm going to get back every second of it.
Training had to be hard, but you fought through it. And at the finish line, 200-meter dash during the Invictus Games. I watched the video, and we're going to see a clip, but I still get emotional just thinking about that fall and the relationship that resulted from that. Let's just take a look at that. You fell, and your competitor crossed the line but came back to make sure you were okay. She is now a lifelong friend, and you shared something with me that's going to be happening this holiday season, which I think is awesome. So would you tell us about that relationship and what's happening for you this year?
Actually, her and her family are going to be coming to spend Christmas with us. And I'm extremely excited. Obviously, she doesn't speak English or understand English, and I don't understand or speak French, so Google Translate is our #1 friend.
So tell us her name.
Her name is Marion. And actually, just the closing of the ceremony, we actually swapped jerseys that evening, and I carry her jersey, and I actually have it mounted on my wall to remind me every single day that, you know, no matter what I go through, no matter the heartaches that I go through, that I could do it, that I've done it one day, and, you know, having PTS and traumatic brain injury, we have our down days, and it's definitely hard to push yourself every single day, but as I go out and I look at my wall, I'm able to tell myself, I've done it once, I could do it again, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to run 3 miles today, or I'm going to run 2 miles today, whatever it takes, I'm going to go do it because I've been given a second chance, and all those people that have pulled from the Pentagon that weren't given that chance, I'm going to fight for them.
You are a fighter, and if people can see there on her leg, it says, it's Wonder Woman. I consider you a Wonder Woman.
Thank you.
And just briefly talking about what your plans are for Christmas, I have another question, but I wanted to just say, I'm just imagining what it's going to be like one of the movies when you're talking about past the turkey and you're trying to figure out, let me quickly Google translate, how do you say turkey in French?
I have no idea.
You need to do a little bit of homework before she gets here. And I have another question for both of you right now when we're talking about adaptive sports and what it's meant to you in your life. Randi, if you want to talk about that first, because you said it's hard to just get everything out that you want to say about it.
Right. Adaptive sports saved my life. There's no other way around it or other way to put it. Adaptive sports came into my life at a very dark time. Not only was I trying to wrap my brain around a diagnosis of post-traumatic stress, because it took me a few years to get to that diagnosis, and a traumatic brain injury, but I was also in a very abusive relationship and thinking that everything was, that was my new normal. And out of the blue, very literally one day, someone just said, hey, you're gonna go to Colorado Springs and do this. You don't really have a choice. They need females, and you're the only one that can do it. So here you go. So I didn't believe that I could do it. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I no longer question it. It saved my life. It saved my soul, and it opened my eyes to better opportunities than the road I was going down.
So what motivates you every day?
What motivates me every day now is the people who have stood by me and believed me when I didn't believe me, who believed in me, pushed me, still push me every day when I don't feel like I can get out of bed and do anything, or when I don't feel like I have ever achieved anything. And the people who have not been given the opportunities that I have. There's a huge problem with veterans taking their own lives, and I have a few very close friends, some who are now encased in ink on my body, who didn't get the opportunity or find that path. And so what drives me every day is giving those opportunities to other service members, or trying to help coach them or train them, or just scoop them up and bring them to an event just so they can see that there is something better and something worthwhile out there.
And you, I mean, it's, when you think about motivation every day, I mean, you've got it, you wear it, but every day you may not feel like it. What keeps you? How has adaptive sports helped you?
Adaptive sports has honestly saved my life as well, because, well, there's several reasons. One is, you know, being in crowds and around a lot of people is really difficult for us. And, you know, for those 30 seconds I'm running down the track, is those 30 seconds that I don't have to think about what's going on in my life. I don't have to think about what's hurting me, what's bothering me, what's going on around me. For those 30 seconds, all I can think about is the finish line, and that's it. And for that 30 seconds is worth every single second to me. And not only that, is being around other veterans and being around other people that have the same drive as you. You don't have to ask them what's wrong, what's hurting. You just know that you're there for one another. You don't have to explain, this is what I went through, and, feel sorry for me kind of thing. It's like, we're here, we're pushing ourselves, congratulations, good job. But we don't need to talk about what's hurting us in our lives because we're there for one another, and we're there for the same reason. We're there to heal and to be there for one another and encourage other people to do it as well.
And real quickly, if you could say what that means to you as a mother.
As a mother, it's showing my son that a woman can remain strong and we could get through this. And, I might be missing a leg and I might have been injured in war, but, I'm rising up through the ashes and I'm telling myself that I could do this. And my son will also have that memory that his mother has remained strong through this and nothing is going to tear her down.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
For your bravery, your inspiration. We appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you.